Welcome to Extra Takes, hosted by Northland Church Senior Pastor Dr. Joshua Laxton. Join us each week as Pastor Josh reveals the rest of the story behind his sermons. We'll discuss how those who follow Christ can live out a biblical vision for the church in our world today.
Well, hello, Northland family and friends. Welcome to another episode of Extra Takes. I'm your co-host, PJ, along with Matt Shiles. What kind of mug you got today? What you got?
Is this France?
France.
Yeah.
Yeah, the French people, we love them because Jesus loves them, but they're not very nice people because, like I've said, when I've traveled through there, they've either stolen my hair glue or they've told me that I don't know how to pack.
Don't mess with this man's
Don't mess. Don't mess with my hair. And then I can't believe, what do you mean I don't know how to pack? They said it was very messy.
Oh, really?
I'm like, what?
I didn't hear that.
You never heard that? Oh yeah, because you're going through France, you got to, you're kind of going through customs, and they go through your bag, and this guy's like, oh, he's very messy. All right, well, please give me some packing tips. So,
wow.
Anyways, so France.
Yeah, this is the mug.
We love French bread.
I haven't been there other than a layover.
A layover, yeah, same thing.
It's still a nice mug.
Very nice.
All right, so we'll see if in our upcoming travels anybody takes your hair gel. We'll have to update you guys.
Stay tuned.
So this week we're talking about technology, right?
Tech.
Yep.
Hair glue is tech.
You know what? That was a big theme for me. Was you expanded my view of technology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would have never said that hair gel or hair glue is technology. Interesting.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, and when you also think about tech, even in that bell curve, we talked about innovators.
Sure.
So innovation and technology are two sides of the same coin because you got to invent.
Right.
So you got to cultivate the raw materials.
Yeah.
And so the invention becomes the tech.
Sure.
And then now the tech is consumed, used, stewarded, managed. Yeah. So not everybody is an inventor, but everybody is a consumer, steward, a steward, a manager, of that. But no, I mean, so I wrote an article and I put it on my website, but I wrote it for Christianity Today years ago. And it was around innovation and technology. So even use some of the things that I talked about here, but yeah. So innovation and technology are, again, they're two separate things, but they're two sides of the same kind of thing because you need the invention, the innovation for technology to come about, and so
awesome. So this is our Faith and Technology TED series this year, and this week was the overview. This was June 14th and 15th. So let's talk about, give you the overview of each of the parts, and then we'll dig in. So TED Talk Part 1, we talked about what is technology, gave us a general definition of technology. We talked about the 4 layers of technology from philosopher Stephen Klein. We looked at the 3 eras of technology by Neil Postman and Technopoly. You asked this question about technology being a friend or a foe. Then you ended it with this question: have you thought deeply about your life and technology? So that was the first part. Second part, technology bell curve. That's the early market, chasm, mainstream. We'll look at that. 5 elements of faith, that framework that we've looked at before, but you gave us an opportunity to look at it through the lens of technology and how each of those, what questions we should ask with each of those. We looked at where does technology fit within the story of God. And then we had this awesome overview of these Christians who played a role in the technological revolution, gave us baseline principles, and then homework. Man, that's a lot. There's so much here. Right?
There is a lot here. I had somebody's like, we got to figure out where did they put the slides. So because somebody came to me and like, man, that was a lot. I couldn't keep up with all of it. It was so good, but it was a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know where the slides are. So
Yeah.
We got to figure out how to get these slides into people's hands, because it's a lot. But again, and when I think about it, because I've listened to so many different TED Talks, and so mine, I'm trying to squeeze a lot in, but just high level kind of overview.
Yeah.
And so again, some of it, short answer, yes, it is a lot, but I'm also going back, like the faith framework, this and that, and
well, so when I say a lot, you don't have to apologize for it, but I think I thought you had a great recognition of, hey, some of you may be just kind of like overwhelmed a bit. That's okay. Maybe you feel behind a little bit. You'll catch up in week 2 or 3. Kind of just that recognition that, like, a lot of this stuff, since it is an overview, it's just kind of laying the groundwork, and then some of the dots will be connected in future weeks.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody say, give me like a little table summary of what you did. Well, part 1, I just simply defined it, what other people have said technology is, and based upon the definition, here are technologies that we have in our life, and that just scratched the surface.
Sure.
And then you look at the air, basically the layers of technology, because I want you to see that technology isn't just devices or artifacts or products, but they're also they're systems, they're methods, there are techniques that are involved, and when you put them all together, you actually do have you have a breadth, a width of understanding of what technology is, and how actually technology is almost the kind of the building block of civilization, which I get to in the second part. But so you got that, then you got the 3 eras of technology, and then you just kind of figure out, okay, all right, so now this just gives you a big just overview of tech. That tech is much bigger than what you think about. So therefore, is technology a friend or a foe? Well, if you really begin to think deeply about it, you will see both the friend nature of it and then the foe nature of it. And then the question is, have you thought about it deeply? Okay, probably not. Then now we're going to enter into part 2, this overview of now we're going to insert now more Christian thoughts about technology. And so now when you start looking at that, and then to even give a foundation of how Christians played such a pivotal role in laying the foundation for a technological revolution. So the whole point there is to show people that Christians have actually played a major role in the creation of technology in the modern world, which should, it should have this kind of sense of, when I say pride, appreciation, not a bad, sinful pride, but oh my gosh, the church has really been at the forefront of some incredible things. And then to end with some homework, so like that. So when you're going through it, you're like, oh, coming at it, a lot. But if you're paying kind of attention, and some people, and this is where we got to make sure that, because these series, I'm driven more by slides than I am a kind of a manuscript. Even though when I have a manuscript, I have slides, but I'm doing a TED Talk. These are slides. These are big ideas that I'm just, So my encouragement would be, don't try to take notes.
Oh.
Listen. Because you can go back and hopefully, not hopefully, we're going to make sure you get the slides.
Sure.
Now, if you need to jot down a thought that comes to your mind, but don't feel like you got to jot down the content.
Right, like each of the points. So, for example, the 4 layers, right? All of the specific points of the 4 layers.
Yeah, you don't have to, because we'll give you the slide.
There.
Yeah, we want to give you the slide, but just take it in. Like, hardware. Oh, yeah. Like, oh, yes. Okay.
Got it.
Because that's, it's not about, so it's about informing you, but you're not going to be in some sense tested on this. I'm trying to give you this overview of understanding technology in a way that you may have never even understood it.
Sure.
For most people.
Yeah.
Now, so I got some engineers coming up to me, and they're like, this was amazing. Like, I love that. And I had people who have been in tech all their life going, oh, like this was so good. Now, if you're not in tech and you're a late adopter or you're a skeptic and all, then it might be like, oh, this was good. I needed it, but it was so hard for me to keep up because you're learning so much on the fly.
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of in the middle of that. Not all of it was new to me, but a fair amount of it was new. Yeah, so it was a lot to consume. But I do appreciate the way you talked about the first part and the second part, and I very much found myself in the second part referencing the first part.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot. Like I referenced the friend or foe a lot. I referenced the forms of technology, that whole list. So like when I was doing my homework, I went back to that whole list. Because it's kind of hard to, you just have a blank, template. Oh, what technologies do I use every day? And you can just think, this is a limited list. That list is immense. The technologies we use every day. I wouldn't have said it my car. I'm just thinking technologies that are like on the cutting edge, not ones that I'm just like used to in everyday life, like a microwave or an oven. I don't think of that as a technology. I'm thinking of this as a technology, my phone. I'm thinking of AI as technology.
So in the class that I took in college, operational management, I learned about the Kaizen management system, and it originated in Japan. And it's like a process, and it's almost like when I say 360 process that everyone gets to feed into the process improvement. That's a technology, because that is a systemic or like a system kind of technique to improving life in the manufacturing plant.
Wow.
That's a technology.
Yes, systems and techniques. That wasn't even on my radar at all. Huh.
Which technology, technique, what's the root word?
Tech, yeah. Really, so one of my biggest takeaways so far is when you say, have you thought deeply about your life in technology? The first question, before I even answer that, I have to say, wait, actually, I've been thinking about technology too narrowly.
Yeah.
So if I want to think deeply about how my life is affected by technology, I have to understand the breadth it has on my life in order to start thinking deeply. So that's kind of like where I am now. So, I'm excited about this conversation. We have a listener question for us who's in the tech world. So this is going to be good. So let's start with describe this week in one word.
Technology.
No, can't do that.
What do you mean I can't do that?
This is called faith in technology. It's like you can't use the word. No.
I made it up.
No. What are you going to use next week? Because, we got 4 weeks of this?
So next week, so this would be overview, okay? Introduction.
That's lame.
Lame. Well, you the one asked me so you asked me the question. You're going to tell me if my answer is lame? Well, you're a good interviewer now.
Do you disagree? It's a bit of a cop-out answer.
I don't know if it's a cop-out answer. It's just it's an overview. Did you not learn an overview? Did you not learn more than what you knew?
I did.
Okay, so I would say it's an overview.
Fair enough. Fine.
So next week would be more building. Is that tech builds?
Well, don't tell us yet.
Oh, okay.
We're not there.
Well, but there's my answer. It's an overview.
Oh my gosh. Listeners, you can let us know if that's an adequate answer or not.
Well, what word would you use?
They'll come, man, I didn't write it down. I came up with 2 or 3 different words. Innovation. I thought of like
the introduction, like
purpose.
So introduction, like so what I have. Yeah. That's what I have right there. I did put Professor Laxton is showing up and not Pastor Laxton.
Oh,
because that's one of the things I love about the TED series is like because it shows because one of the things that like I could bring in like experts around this. But what I'm actually trying to show is the intersection. So what I'm trying to show is that I actually have studied, and again, I'm not a technological expert. It's not like I could go to UCF and teach tech for a living. But I want to show you that I've learned, I've researched, I understand an overview of technology, but because I am a theologian, so that's where my expertise lies as a theologian, missiologist. I'm showing you, so what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to model for Christians that you don't have to be an expert in every area of your life, but you do need to be a good research student in those areas. But then when it comes to the Christian faith, this is how you intersect. So that's one of the reasons why I like doing the TED series, because I want people, not that I want people to go, oh man, he's so smart. No, I really have tried to dig into these areas. So think about the 3 areas that we've done since I've been here. Obviously, one was theology, so I ought to know theology.
Sure.
But then the other one is the church in a divided democracy, so the church's engagement in culture.
Yeah.
And then now this year is faith and technology. Technology is a big realm, and also I haven't decided, but I think I know where I'm going in 2026. But I want people to I'm a student of culture.
Give it to us.
Jordan Peterson in the gospel. So because I want people to know, I really here's a person who's going out there. He's teaching the Bible as not a Christian, and what he's teaching is what he thinks is fact. And I think you know it can be very dangerous. Again, I haven't decided on that, but that means I got to become because I've listened to Jordan Peterson a lot, but I've got to become now more of a student to be able to give an overview of a topic in a Christian way. Because the TED series is for you to do exploration too. It's I'm giving you, I'm actually giving. This is what we do in seminary. So what seminary does. On a master's level, it gives you the tools to actually go deeper. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm doing in these TED series is I'm giving you the tools, an overview, a framework, a kind of a boundary set type of framework for you to dive deeper into that realm yourself that you may have, again, that you're just being introduced to maybe for the first time, or you might be living in that arena, but you've never looked at it deeply from a Christian perspective of what the Word might actually say about that.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I really like how you were saying that this is a way for you to model how we can all enter into this conversation from our point of view. So let's move on. You already gave us 2 books. What books did you read for this series? You had given us From the Garden to the City by John Dyer and Neil Postman's Technopoly. What were some of the others?
There's one called Analog Church. I forget the guy's name. You got a book that's written by Gene, Gene, Gene Veith, Veith. And this is actually written in the 90s. So Christians actually been thinking about technology for a while. And then you got 2084. The number 2084, that is a spinoff of 1984, George Orwell. If some of you might be familiar with that, he was kind of writing about the future in I forget when he wrote it, but about what would be happening in 1984. Sure. Yeah. So John Lennox, he is a professor at, I think, Cambridge. Is it Cambridge? I can't remember. Over across the pond. Yeah. Brilliant. And he's a believer. And so he wrote 2084, and it's really about how Christians ought to think about AI. Yeah. So that was one, and then I've read several non-Christian books around AI, just to try to understand where people are at today of thinking about that. Sure. So those are just a few. There was another one that I'll have to go back and look, but it was one that just came out recently.
So you had, this series about faith and technology is broad. Had you considered going more narrow with just AI? With it being just maybe AI at some point, but I didn't want to get so narrow when most people don't even know the overview. Sure. But I wanted to read more about AI because one of the things that I will probably point out, probably in week 3, maybe week 2, possibly, but what's happened with AI, I don't think I'm going to get to it, but the movie Oppenheimer, about the creation of the atomic bomb, so in that period of time during World War II, just kind of prior to that, there was a nuclear arms race. So all of these nations are racing to create nuclear weapons. Well, so with Oppenheimer, he's the one who is the father of the atomic bomb, and America is the one who dropped it on Hiroshima, right? And completely, basically, America was already the superpower, but then that atomic bomb flexed the muscle. So we'd won the nuclear arms race. Well, what's happening now in the world is the AI.
So we're now at an AI race, and all of these nations are actually in pursuit of becoming king of the hill with AI because of all of the things that you could potentially do with AI.
Yeah.
Which that's what's making it very concerning for even all of the players in AI, is because there's no boundaries. There's no, when I say geopolitical boundaries, there's no policies. There's really no laws. And so, because again, you had none of that with the atomic bomb, with
Sure.
weapons of mass destruction. And so now you can have these digital, kind of these digital technologies that are mass destructive. For the world. So, anyways, that's why I wanted to read. What are people saying about AI? Because again, there's a lot of things about AI that are very friendly, but there are a lot of things too that are very faux-y or faux-ish. So that's the reason why, and that's why I didn't want to go deep. I didn't want to go narrow.
Right.
I wanted to start broad, and maybe later on, maybe we'll look at AI deeper.
Yeah.
But AI is a big category itself, because AI can be in the medical realm. AI can be in when I say the digital realm. AI can be in the technique. Like AI is everywhere. So.
Right.
We're still learning about AI,
Right.
Whereas technology, I think we need to learn the broad strokes of technology before we learn the nuances, particularly in the realm of AI, which is still broad in and of itself.
And it's still developing and growing fast, and I like that perspective and approach. That I think there's principles that we'll be able to learn from technology in general.
Yeah, exactly.
That we will be able to view the current technologies of the day with a new lens, and AI as a huge category is one of the most important current technologies of the day. So one of those books that you had mentioned was The Three Areas of Technology with the Technopoly with Neil Postman, and he talked about tool using, technocracies, and technopoly. Could there be another era? Like, I know we're in the technopoly era. Did he talk about that? Like, is there anything after that era?
No, because technopoly, he would say that tech has monopolized life.
That's it.
Yeah. Now, some people would say, again, Neil Postman, you can just Google him. So by the mid-19, because he died not too long after. Okay. And he was a professor at NYU.
Okay.
And he was actually what you would call a laggard, even to a degree, a Luddite. He wrote when I say he wrote his books out, so again, in the 70s, he would write them and he would hand them in. Yeah.
And is he the one that wrote Amusing Ourselves to Death?
Yeah, and that's a great book too if you want a book to just look at how we have, as a modern society, changed our communication approach, how TV has changed, how politics has changed in terms of communication. That is a great book, Amusing Ourselves to Death. So he wouldn't say this, but you could actually say, so if Elon Musk is right that by the year 2050 we'll have 8 to 10 billion robots in the world, now you're looking at the whole iRobot kind of movie where, and this is that technopoly where now tech has literally taken over human life.
Well, and it's interesting when you look at that in the context of, this is getting ahead, but the technology bell curve. And then even the skepticism, because you have something that has so much potential fear connected to it, right? And you just want to jump to pushing back against technology, which I think is why having such a broad view of technology is very helpful, because and we'll get to it, even the homework, this idea of you put friend next to way more technology than I would have expected. And me too, I put friend next to way more technology. I think I had more of I thought I had more of a skeptical view of technology than I did, but I think that was because my narrow-minded view of technology.
Yeah. Well, kind of even going back to, is there another era after technopoly?
Yeah.
All right. So something that you have to, again, we have to keep in mind is that when you look at the birth rate throughout the globe, you have, when I say most nations not able to keep up with the birth rate, as they don't have a birth rate to keep up with their death rate. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're not producing as many offspring as the world once did. Okay, so what does that mean? That means you have an aging, declining global population over the course of the next 50 plus years. Okay, well, so then you start creating all of these machines, and we don't have. And what are we actually creating? That's the thing. Like, so if you create 8 to 10 billion machines over the next 25 years, but the population is declining because we're not having children. Like, what will be that kind of society in which we live? It's what we would call, it's what people would call a dystopian society. So these are two words. You have a dystopia and a utopia. Now, you might be familiar with the utopia, where it's like paradise on earth. Like that's what the Enlightenment thinkers. So in the 17, so between 1500 and 1700, you have the scientific revolution that's laying the foundation for what we would call modernity, and all of these innovations and creations and rationalism and again all of the intellect that is really building up at this time. And so the scientific revolution gave way to the Enlightenment. So between kind of the 1700, 1800, you have this Enlightenment period where, rationalism is taking place. And so now we're smarter than God, because now we're learning all of the science type stuff. And so people thought, the Enlightenment thinkers thought, that by human reason and intellect, that we could create a utopian society where we can bring basically heaven on earth, that we can create peace. And what has happened is that through all of what the scientific revolution had kind of laid the foundation for, and the Enlightenment thinkers took it and began to implement it without God in the mix. What we are seeing now in the 21st century, and we saw this in the 20th century, particularly with World War II, is that it's not a utopian society, it's actually a dystopian society. It's the things that Huxley, forget his name, Albert Huxley in his Brave New World, and then even George Orwell in 1984, they were talking about, like, neither one of them looked at it like we're building a utopia. And so all of that being said and this kind of lays the foundation for this next coming week, tech is building something. Tech is moving us somewhere.
Sure.
And if we're not careful as Christians, this is why we need to know what tech is building, because we're supposed to be involved in it. We're supposed to be creating it. We're supposed to be stewarding it, consuming it.
Sure.
And so how are we doing that?
Yeah, so this leads us into the end of part one. That question, have you thought deeply about your life in technology? And you made a statement, don't plant or eat the fruit unless you know what you were planting and or eating. I think that's really, really interesting, especially in the context of then how you start part two, which is the technology bell curve.
Because all right, so let's think. All right, because I put so there were some things that I added to the list that that people may not think about. All right, so medicine is on that list. So Sigmund Freud even talked about medicine. Kind of drugs, cigarettes, pipes, cigars, a hot water heater, washer, dryer, dishwashers, toilets. Can I get an amen? Yeah, we got some toilets, a bidet. I don't have a bidet, but if you have a bidet, that is a technology. Pools, hot tubs, internet, social media, ChatGPT, all of that. And so, but think about tobacco. Think about tobacco. All right, so that was a plant that we planted, but we didn't think. I mean, again, like there might be some good usages of tobacco, but you planted it. But it wasn't until the 20th century, towards the end, that we're like, man, it's actually not good for you. That is the tobacco could actually be killing you. Okay, so alcohol would actually be a technology. Fermented wine is a technology, and so this is the idea is that okay, so you plant the vineyard, and so Noah planted the vineyard, but what did he do? He drank too much of that vineyard, and it wasn't good. And so you can plant things, but do you know what you're planting? And then whatever that plant is, or whatever you're planting is yielding, do you know what the consumption of it is doing to you? And what we have done in, kind of in human history is that we haven't really given a lot of thought to what we're planting and whether or not it's really good for us.
Yeah, the whole quote from Jurassic Park, we didn't stop to think whether we should. I think that's...
So here's another one, and again, I'm giving it to you because it's a continuation. But all right, so think about processed foods. That's a technology. So our Lucky Charms, our cereals that I love Fruit Loops. Like Fruit Loops is kind of my favorite, but I'm no longer a kid. But that's a technology. Is that what we've done? We've taken some raw materials, we've invented cereal because we've taken all of these raw materials. We've even created some processed materials. We put it all together. But that is a technology. And here's what we know is that if we consume more and I'm not the bastion of health. Please hear me when I'm saying it. But here's what I do know is that technology, that processed food, if you eat more processed food than you do natural food, then what we are finding, and this is in science and research and data, is that a lifetime of consumption of processed food actually leads to unhealthy conditions. Okay, so that's technology that we're consuming.
Yeah.
And here's what's crazy, and this is where the church has to be at the forefront of this, is that processed foods are typically they cost less than natural foods. That should, in some sense, that shouldn't be. So the unhealthier stuff is actually less than the healthier stuff. And then what you see in urban settings is what they call food deserts, because the poorest of the poor cannot even get access to quality, healthy food. They're being in some sense forced to buy this unhealthy processed food, and it leaves them in an unhealthier state. So this is how technology, again, what we are doing, what we are building, we've got to think deeper and better about these things.
Yeah, I think what you're helping describe is all the way back connected to Genesis 1, how technology directly impacts our ability to implement human flourishing.
Yeah. It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, it's amazing. So we have a listener question from Nathaniel Lamas. He's very excited to listen. He's in tech, and he says, I loved that chart of how people tend to engage with technology, right, the bell curve. He said there is a general distrust or suspicion in our culture, especially right now, of innovators and visionaries, so those first two in technology. For Christians who find themselves in those categories, how can we engage with this skeptical world in a way that points to Jesus?
So the answer that comes right to my mind is you've got to have when I say a theological framework to help people understand. Because I actually think by doing what I just did this past week and doing what I'm going to do the next 2 weeks is that I'm giving people a actual theological framework of why we do what we do and how we should do it. And that's one of the things that I believe that the church ultimately over the last several decades have failed to do. We're just told, don't do that, do this. Okay, why don't we do that again? So when I grew up in a more legalistic kind of setting where, we don't smoke, we don't drink, we don't, why don't we do that? Well, it's just bad for you. Okay, I understand that, but because in some sense you don't see the Bible says do not smoke. And then when we people say, well, don't drink. Well, Jesus didn't drink. Well, he turned water into wine. No, it was grape juice. It was not grape juice. And then Noah, when he plants a vineyard, sucker gets plastered. So don't sit there and tell me it wasn't alcoholic. So it's where so this is where but why? And so this is part of the reason why we got to go deeper to explain the framework and how we engage with the raw materials, how we engage in creating from the raw materials, how we consume the raw materials. And so that's why I would tell People like Lamas, if you're an innovator, you're a tech enthusiast, like help people understand, like politics. Like we did that series last year.
Yeah.
Like the Bible's not telling us to be an ostrich and put our head in the sand and not engage in the political realm.
Sure.
But the Bible will give us insight and wisdom in how we engage and work within the political sphere, but we have to be truthful, honest, biblical, and not what I would call presuppositional. Like what I mean by presuppositions, if you just say, I think you ought to be doing this because this is your this is how you already approach that subject. Like, so for instance, let's just say I was in the political realm and I was running for office. There's going to be a lot of presuppositions that I might have in teaching this, where what we need to be honest with is, like, let's try to get into the original context and background of the passage. Because so when you think about even in the political realm, okay, Paul's not in the political realm, so what he's going off of, we need to honor the emperor. Peter, same thing. We need to honor the emperor in his epistle. So, I mean, there are things that we have to be very honest with and try to eliminate, at least approach the text in a way that eliminates our cultural presuppositions about a topic. So this is where I would say with Lamas, okay, people, if you're already in the tech space, people automatically assume that you're going to be pro-tech. So this is part of where you've got to enter into, especially because, again, the Bible does have things to say about how we would engage in this realm of technology.
Sure.
But this is part of where you need to try to eliminate your presuppositions and imposing things on the text, but allow the text, the Bible, to speak for itself. And then to give that biblical framework of how we think, how we engage, how we steward. And that's what we did. And that's what I try to do with that faith framework, is how we see tech, why we use tech, what are right and wrong ways to use tech, and how do we grow in our use of tech. So I would encourage Lama. So if you're teaching a group of people about what you're creating in your tech area, all right, so you're teaching them, okay, this is how I see tech based upon the Bible. So you're approaching that. And then you're going to mission. And then this is what you're saying. Here's what the mission of God is. This is what we believe the mission of God is in the Bible from beginning to end. And so this is why we would use tech. And so then you need to start listing out all of the ways missionally we are using the tech you are creating to be shaped and formed into God's people, and to actually be a witness for God in the world through this tech. And then what are right ways and wrong ways? So this is where you're thinking deeply. All right, so this is why we're creating it. These are the right ways of using the tech that we are creating. Yeah. These are even some of the other, because think about it. There's I did a message, I can't remember, but where like bubble wrap was created to be wallpaper, and now right. There are things that it might be created for this, but maybe you're even thinking about, hey, these are other right ways that you could use this tech. But even this is where you need to be honest with how it could be used that would be detrimental to you or to others. And so that's what you're doing. You are you're giving a framework, a human framework of how you're wanting people to see, to think, to behave, to even grow in their usage of this tech.
Yeah, well said. I think the 5 elements of faith, I think that's a great framework. It reminds me of, what your dissertation is all about, and what we're implementing here is this idea of being faithfully present in all spheres of life. A couple of things I jotted down for Lamas and others. You don't have to put aside your love for Jesus,
right,
in order for him to do what he's doing.
Yeah.
Right, and it's not in spite of your love for Jesus, but it's actually because of your love for Jesus that you are developing these new technologies for human flourishing. Right? So it's not just this, hey, I'm allowed to do this, but this is who I am. Yeah. And because this is who I am, this is what I'm doing to glorify God. And it's an incredible opportunity to speak into this idea of marketplace ministry. 99% of the church are not in vocational ministry, right? So this obviously speaks directly to we're talking about people that have a career in tech. Obviously, all of us consume tech,
right,
in some way. So whether you have a career in tech or not, you're consuming tech in some ways, but you have a career in something else. So everything that we just talked about in terms of how you would approach it in somebody who has a career in tech, well, that applies to every other career.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
This is just a way that we can dig in and understand that our career, the way that we've been wired, the way that we have we've been educated and what we're passionate about, we have an opportunity to change the world.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's important, and that's where that question of have you thought deeply about tech, and that's where people can even get skeptical is, yes, the world is being changed, and is it for the better or not? Shouldn't we want believers who want the best for society being on the cutting edge of developing those technologies?
And there are a lot of areas in the world today that need cutting edge technology in a host of ways. Mm-hmm. And again, not just digital technology. Sure. Like one of the things that I love, when I say I love seeing about tiny homes, micro homes, so if the home prices are getting just out of balance, and that people, particularly like young professionals and young marrieds, can't really even afford a home, then there needs to be some technology created. And so you see people like Elon Musk, they're trying to create tiny homes that are affordable and that are livable. Yeah. Okay, so that's a cutting edge technology. So those are things that we need to be thinking about, like water and clean, pure water, like cutting edge. How do we get that? How do we, so there's so many different areas, and this is where I wanting us to think about. Anytime there's a cutting edge technologies, I'm looking at the technocracy and the printing press, the Model T, and the internet. So the printing press, while it could be used for so much good, the Gutenberg press, Gutenberg was a believer. He wanted to mass produce the Bible. But now, we know that the when I say the printing press and even the digital press now, it can be so mass produced to produce misinformation. So this is part of where, and this is what I want to show this coming week, is that technology, and this is where we don't need to shy away from it, but we need to make sure that we're creating tech that give resemblances and reflections of God's glory and His kingdom. But know that there will be the kingdom of man, and I'm putting in air quotes, the kingdom of man, there will be sinners who will take technology and they will twist it and manipulate it for their own glory in the world. It just happens. But the Model T, so this was really good. This was a great invention. The automobile, great invention. And it really helped. He mass produced it. He made it cheap enough where people could have it, and it it precipitated, though. It basically led to the creation of suburbs, which then ultimately created to the isolation of actually deep community. Yeah. And so there was a negative effect to something that was actually really good. And so you see that in all of the creation of most technology, is that what was meant for good can be twisted and used for evil. And we just have to understand that and to think deeply so that we can help people understand that, and we can even understand that in our own life.
Yeah. So let's look at the next part, how Christians played a vital role in the technological revolution. You listed out, I believe, 8 different people. Yeah. We've all heard of them: Copernicus, Kepler, Galilei, Newton, Pascal, Boyle, Descartes, and Bacon. So which was the most encouraging or surprising to learn about?
Yeah, and when there were, I can't even pronounce some of these names, that did not make the list, like Leeuwenhoek, Leuwenhoek. He was a Dutch Reformed. He had microscopy and microbiology. Okay. He came up, he came up with that. You had Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. He was the co-inventor. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. He was the co-inventor of calculus.
Okay.
Then you have Carolus Linus. He developed the modern taxonomy and binomial nomenclature. He was Lutheran.
So biology,
So these are a lot. I mean, there were more that I could put on there.
Yeah.
Like William Harvey.
Okay.
He discovered the circulation of blood, and he was Anglican.
Wow.
So Tycho Brahe. He accurate astronomical observations, hybrid model of cosmos. He was Lutheran, had complex views on cosmology and religion. Christian Huygens, the wave theory of light, invented the pendulum clock. He was a Protestant, Dutch Reformed. So you have somebody who actually created the clock, who created how we measure time.
We just take that for granted.
Who was a Dutch Reformed guy. So I mean, like there was so many. So I mean, so I just picked 8 that I felt like most people would know these guys.
Yeah.
So that's where that came from.
So was there anybody that stood out to you? Somebody that you maybe, even to what you were saying before, giving you the tools, anybody that you're like, man, I want to learn more about this person?
I'd love to, because I've heard Nicholas Copernicus mentioned a lot over the last couple of years from guys. I'd love to probably do a little deeper dive on him.
Yeah.
I kind of knew Sir Isaac Newton because we just Johannes Kepler. Like I really loved what he said. I am merely thinking God's thoughts after him. And so I'm like, I need, and that came from the harmony of the world. I'm like, I would love to kind of dig into that to go, all right, like I'd love to explore that.
It's one thing to have inventors who, you have the C or the L or A next to them, right? It's another thing to have those quotes.
Yeah.
Those quotes were what just like blew me away.
Yeah.
Like there weren't just these, because I'm like, are these just cultural Christians? But like the quotes you gave were just so incredible.
And what you have to and a lot of them are not. I mean, they are devout. They are devout. When I say devout believers, even though they would be, they would in some sense practice their Christianity a little bit different than we would, especially if they were Catholic
Sure.
or if they were Lutheran or even Anglican. But again, that was the waters that that all of the people were swimming in at that day.
Sure.
So now, what we see with these guys, I mean, most of the ones that I put on here, they are devout, which is why I wanted to give you, these are some pretty deep statements. Like, I didn't know Francis Bacon said that. Like, a little philosophy inclineth man's mind to atheism, but depth and philosophy bringeth men's mind about to religion. And you have to understand what he means religion. Like, he used religion completely different than what we would use religion. Basically, he's meaning faith. That's what
Sure.
that's how he's using religion. And so and then like Robert Boyle, like we should not fear the study of nature that it would diminish our faith. He's like, no, it would actually embolden our faith.
That's amazing.
Like these are, I mean, so this was the water that they were swimming in, but what had happened. And this one I referenced the Enlightenment earlier.
Yeah.
Is that so these men have deep faith and conviction, but from that it emerged a generation like Friedrich Nietzsche who wanted to kill God.
Yeah.
Because we're smart enough.
Yeah.
And all God has done, and then you had other people like in the 1800s that are trying to distance themselves from religion, from faith, and going strictly into more of this agnosticism and then atheism. So, but what we're actually seeing today, which is fascinating, is that now in the realm of science, we're seeing more and more of these people who were once agnostic or atheist at least distance themselves from that because they're finding more and more evidences of going, okay. And that's what John Lennox is talking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It was great. And then, here's how so this is, full disclosure here. All right, so I had all of these guys, these guys are devout, they're part of the church, they have faith. So what I did is, I put into ChatGPT, I put in all of these guys and what they're known for.
Okay.
And then I gave it a prompt. So out of all, these guys and what they're known for, what are the technological inventions today that these guys laid the foundation for?
Yeah. And
so ChatGPT spit out space exploration and satellite, smartphones and digital computing. So it gave me what these guys, because of their work.
Sure.
If it were not for these works, these areas would not have been possible. So that was pretty cool to use technology to feed it. So I'm feeding it the information of these guys.
Sure. It seems like a good use of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
To make connections that would have been way hard to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Without the depth of expertise.
Let me see if I can quote from. Okay. So it says, all right, so it says, great question. During the scientific revolution, a significant number of key figures were indeed Christians. As Christianity was the dominant culture and religious framework in Europe at the time, many scientists not only identified as Christians, but saw their work as a way to understand God's creation better. And then, it goes...
I think we can get back to that.
What's that?
What you just said.
Yeah. And so it says a lot, kind of a lot more. And then it said, yes, this is a great question. These are all of the areas of technology that these guys laid the framework for.
Yeah.
The foundation. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. So
that's awesome. That's awesome to know that. So let's look at two more categories before we finish for today. I want to look at the baseline principles.
Yeah.
And then I want to look at the homework.
Okay.
So I thought that homework was cool. So I'll read these baseline principles. You said tech was meant to be created and used by humans. Tech is a means of life, not the meaning of life. So supplemental, not salvific. Tech is meant to enhance humanity, not erode our humanity. And tech should benefit all humans, not some humans. Which one of those do you want to drill into more?
I don't know if we have to drill into it now, because I think we're going to build off those.
We are. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
so those
that's
are going to continue?
When I say, these baseline principles, so basically what we'll look at even, this coming week and then the next week is, so these are baseline principles that I think you ought to, memorize or just have at your disposal when you're thinking about these, because these are principles. I'm going to show you the theology next week, and then I'm going to give you more questions, but they will all come from these baseline principles.
Cool.
So the tech is a means of life, not the meaning of life.
Cool.
Enhance humanity, not erode humanity. So we'll look at that even deeper next week. And then benefit all humans and not some humans. Because, again, what we're seeing today is that those who are in the tech realm, what many, and again, I'm not saying the majority or most, but many, they're in this tech realm and they're creating, because if they can create it, they get money. Think about, if you look at the top or the richest people in the world, guess where they're at? Usually, today, they're in tech. Mm-hmm. So it's a mean, and now there are some people in tech, they want to benefit all humans, but there are some they don't care as long as it helps their bottom line.
Yeah.
And so that's where but Christians shouldn't think that way.
Sure. Yeah.
Because it's ultimately not about our riches and wealth. It's ultimately about the riches and wealth of the nations.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is that riches and wealth not being just always monetary, but
spiritual,
but the benefit of the humanity. So
I think it's so you created these principles.
Yeah.
These principles being created by a theologian. Obviously, there's the lens in which we view these. That's rich. We're not viewing these as anyone would view them, right? We're viewing these from a biblical framework,
yep.
and And I think that's really important for us to consider. So that's good to know. I'll make sure I keep these handy for us. And then the homework. So create a tech inventory list. I hope you guys are working on your homework. If you haven't already, I did mine. You can see it. I did mine. Create a little chart. I did mine. What I like about the way you teach so often is when you're going to challenge us, you basically show us that you've already met that challenge, right? So, hey, I'm going to do homework. Here's mine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not saying, oh, I'll do homework later, or like I've already done this work, so you guys do homework. But you actually show us a model. So, my question, and we can dig into this, but my question is, what should we do with this homework once we fill it out? What should we do with it, and how should we process it? Because as I was going through it, I definitely had some thoughts and some takeaways, and I just think that there's a benefit of just going through that process.
Yeah.
It's what I love so much about my master's is I've learned that it's less about a test and more about the process of the learning help you learn. So, but what are your thoughts on what should we do with it, and how should we process it?
Yes. So one, like take the iPhone. It's a friend and a foe to me.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly thinking, how can it be less foe, more friend? Okay. So I'm thinking about that, and if I feel like it's getting to the point where the foe is actually debilitating, then I actually need to get when I say very serious, and begin to write out specific things that I need to do. So now I'm more cognizant that it has a potential of being a foe.
Yeah.
So I'm not buying as much stuff. I'm not scrolling through Amazon as much. I'm not looking at Nike.com as much.
Sure.
I'm not on social media as much. I'm trying to limit. So I'm cognizant of that.
Yeah.
But if I felt like it was debilitating, then I need to start writing down and giving myself clear measurements.
Yeah.
So think about language and writing. I have a friend on language and writing, but just because it's a friend. So think about it this way. So you can have levels of friendship, right? They might be an acquaintance, and so they're an acquaintance. They might be a friend, but then they might be a best friend, and then they actually might be an accountability partner. So the question so if they're a friend, you might want to think about, okay, what level of a friend is it? Am I just, I like them, and we're a positive influence in each other's life.
Yeah.
But with when it comes to technology being friend or foe, like how can I become even more? How can this area become even more friendly and enhance my life and enhance the life of people around me? So that's why for me, I'm constantly learning, how can I communicate better? Is there a way for me to relate to people better? Like, so over the years, I've become better at when I say relating in my language and writing through just empathy. So I've learned, and that's actually made, so that technique of empathizing and listening to people, and at least say, hey, so here's what I heard. Like that's a way that that language has become more of a friend to me, that has actually enhanced my ability to communicate and enhanced people around me.
Yeah.
When you think about kitchen appliances, okay, so, and it's a friend and a foe, because now it can be a foe if I don't moderate. I have no problem, and this is the thing, I don't believe that the Bible would have any problem. Like, do you love ice cream? Okay, if you love ice cream, it's okay to eat ice cream. It's not okay to be consumed with ice cream, right? So it's okay, but you just got to but if you find that your kitchen appliances are now feeding more unhealthiness in your life, then you've got to go, what do I need to do? So that's where I'm talking about, you might need to add and subtract, or like you might need to subtract or add technology, because what you might need to do is, there's not really anything wrong with how you're using stewarding kitchen appliances and food. It might be that you need to actually add a workout routine.
Sure. Yeah.
And so why would I need to add a workout routine? So I can be healthier, because those are techniques to enhance my life. And I know that if daddies, and think about it, we just celebrated Father's Day. If I'm healthier, then I'm going to tend to be a healthier dad. Yeah. Not only physically, but emotionally and mentally. So that's what I mean by, and then, the workout routines, like I'm at this place now that I feel like what I'm doing, the rhythm that I'm on is actually a very healthy workout routine. Sometimes my wife's like, you're kind of little. Sometimes you're how would you put it? Overconsumed by it. But for me, if I didn't do what I do, like I know it for me, it's mentally healthy. Now, if I ever felt like it was taken away from my family, then I got to think about that too.
Sure,
So that's what that's how I would encourage you to think about tech, is that if it's a friend, like books, that's a friend. But I actually might need to think about what are the specific books that I need to be reading right now for it to become more of a friend in my life versus just picking random books.
Yeah, what are you consuming? Yeah.
So that's how I would think through it. Now, again, this wasn't exhaustive, but I mean, this was enough to get you thinking about, hey, I'm actually thinking more than just my iPhone, more than, just a computer, more than just a TV. I want you to think about like your routines, your techniques, that type stuff.
Yeah, for me, I think it was helpful to experience where I did have friend on the list. Yeah. My car, more friend, I think. So I separated phone and then like laptop and desktop. So like something I've experienced, we have a desktop at home. So that's more of a friend. So like phone, I'm on it too much. But if I want to do productivity work, I'm not getting sucked on social media and scrolling on a desktop like I would on my phone. Right. So that's kind of one way I could do that. One of the categories I created was apps, and I just thought about all the different apps I have, the different groups of apps. I've got a Bible app, the Notes app. I use that a lot. Bank, budgeting, stocks, Apple Podcasts, Hoopla, so books. And that's mostly friends. Something that I've done that's helped is like I've even deleted the social media apps. So like I'll still go on Facebook or Twitter just on the internet, but I won't have the apps. That has helped me, right? So that's kind of one way that even before this, I've noticed, hey, just having the app makes it too easy to just open up social media on my phone in a quick way. So I really like this idea of friend or foe, and my answers were a little more nuanced. I would put both, or more friend, mostly friend, some foe, etc. But yeah, I really appreciated the process. I even put ChatGPT down there because I've started using it more. It's mostly a friend, but I have found myself being just skeptical, but also wanting to think deeply about, the way I use it for work and the way I use it at home. And it has allowed me to think deeper about the tasks that I do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis here, right? What are the things that I could automate? What are the things that I am doing, that I could be doing, that I'm not doing, that I could pass off to, a virtual assistant type person. So, that's been very positive for me, but I've been coming at it from an open but more of a skeptical approach. But yeah, I would encourage you to do this. It was a helpful process for me. I think the kitchen devices was probably the most surprising category. Microwave, air fryer, oven, stovetop, Instant Pot. I don't think of any of that as technology. Yeah, like I wasn't.
Well, and here's this is where I really believe it. Like, what do you use mostly? And then you can even go food. I mean, food. Food. Like there are again, food is most food would be considered tech.
We have friends that have cut out microwave completely, and we got an air fryer, and we've been trying to transition to the oven, and we're like, that's not always the most effective, right? So we've done air fryer and done some more of that just because we wanted to transition for it. It's a different mindset when you can get something in a minute versus 5 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour.
Yeah, and I get it because we're and then this shows that we are very we're very busy people. So where do we need? And again, this is another one that we don't think about is a bed. A bed is a technology. I mean, like again, this is something that has been created to enhance. Like,
sure.
When you go to other places, even around the world, they don't have what we have.
Yeah.
And so, how long do you spend in bed? Do you know the science behind the use of bed? I mean, all of that. Like again, some people might think you're getting too deep. No, I don't believe I am. I mean, so if you spend too much time in bed, well, Proverbs has something to say. If you spend too little time, the Bible would have something to say about that. And then and then to be able to enhance your life, like I wouldn't fault anybody if spending a decent amount of money. And again, somebody would say, well, I'm not going to define what a decent amount of money is. But I can promise you, our bed is like 20 years old. We are in desperate need of a new bed. So at some point, we're going to buy a new bed, and we're going to spend a good amount because, one, I look at, okay, we bought this bed almost 20 years ago. So we basically paid 25 cents a day for it, or whatever it is, or a penny at this point. Like,
well, and you spend a third of your life.
So but there's so much research on if you get good sleep of how it affects your body. And the operation and functionality of your body. I know that now.
Yeah.
So this is a technology that I know that I need to invest in, because by investing in it, I'm actually investing in my well-being. That's part of understanding tech, is that if I'm going to buy, and so this is where, but I know this, that if I invest, if I buy the best version of the phone, that doesn't necessarily enhance my life. Now, maybe you do something for work by buying the highest level of phone. Maybe it does enhance your life, but you've got to think through those things. And I know it's very deep.
Great.
So
this is great. I'm looking forward to the next few weeks.
All right. Well, Northland, we done?
You're ready to be done.
Well, I mean,
we're done. You picked up on the transition well.
I did. All right, so we done. So Northland family and friends, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Extra Takes. Until next week, blessings.
Thanks for listening to Extra Takes. Be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you won't miss a single episode.